How's it going, everyone? My name is Colin Winters. I'm the host of A Panthers Place, and today we are going over the NFC South quarterly report. So if this was a couple of years ago, it would have been like more of a nice and even quarterly report because you could actually break down the NFL season into real 4-week quarters. But now, because the 17-game season, it's not really going to work out. Probably just going to add the last game on the last report at the end of the season once the regular season's over. But for now, it is past week 4 now, heading into week 5. And all of the NFC South has played their games, so I'm going to be going over exactly how each team is doing. Now, the format for this video is going to be 2 things good that I see from each team, and then 2 things bad that I see from each team. And we're going to be going from the top of the NFC South standings to the bottom of the NFC South standings. And my voice sounds like shit. One, it's because I'm just terrible at talking to a camera still, and then I'm also just kind of getting sick. So, of course, at the top of the division at the moment, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are sitting at 3-1 with 1 divisional win. So, the first thing I have for them is that, 1, I'm going to say you have surprised the fuck out of me because I expected you all to be the worst team in the division by far, and absolutely blown out of the water with what I saw for expectations. I mean, you're doing really well, and I have to give, compliments for that, even though it pains me to do so because I hate your team. But the good, of course, is Baker Mayfield, which, honestly, this does not surprise me because Baker Mayfield, to me, has always seemed like the type of QB who just needs a system, and the Buccaneers have shown that they are fantastic at just building systems around these guys. So I was not surprised when he didn't work out for the Panthers because the system that we had in place was not a fit for him. So I didn't even know why we even tried to get Baker Mayfield. It made no sense to me. But because of that, people are very surprised when they see Baker Mayfield succeeding this season, which you shouldn't be. This is a Bucs team that is able to make a system that helped Tom Brady, and because Baker Mayfield is like, Wish.com Tom Brady when it comes to, how his system works, and, he's just a little bit more mobile than Tom Brady was, then there is no surprise that the Buccaneers are able to tailor a system that helps Baker Mayfield succeed. Another good for the Buccaneers is their defense. They aren't letting up a lot of points, and they are absolutely helping their offense by making sure they can stay in the game, even if the offense is having struggles, which is something that is incredibly useful and seems to be a trend throughout most of the NFC South is a really good defense that helps a struggling offense. But with Baker Mayfield doing good and the defense doing well, it is leading to a formula that helps get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to this 3-1 start that they have. And while the Tampa Bay offense has been able to limit their mistakes, especially with Baker Mayfield very much limiting the interceptions he's throwing, it helps because the Tampa Bay defense is also doing a great job at getting the ball away from opposing offenses, and their turnover differential right now is one of the best in the league with a turnover difference of 7. Now we get to the bad of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I want to go first into how many injuries they have and how that is going to hopefully get better, but if not, could really affect them because these injuries are to some of their best starters. Currently, as of right now, when I'm recording this, 10/3/23, I see Carlton Davis still on the injury report, Jamal Dean, Kalijah Cansey, Vita Vea, and Devin White, which are huge players to have on the injury report, and even if they do play, you are worried that they're going to re-aggravate whatever they were originally on the injury report in the first place. So hopefully everything's all right there, but if these injuries stack up on defense, which is one of their bright spots, they could see themselves lose a little bit more games, especially against higher-powered offenses that they could have usually slowed down. And now the last negative I have for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is their running game. Their running game is not doing much to aid in the offense and is one of the big reasons why you see sometimes the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are scoring so low and their defense is really the reason they won a game, because you can't rely on Baker Mayfield to do everything because, like I said, he is a system quarterback, and if the system isn't working because the other opposing defense is able to clamp down on it, you need a running game to help you a little bit, and they do not really have one. Currently, they only have 1 touchdown on the ground and only 348 total rushing yards during these past 4 weeks. And it's not that they're not trying to run the ball. Actually, right here, you can see that their top running back, Rachaad White, he's averaging 3.3 yards carry, and he's carried the ball 63 times. So they're just actually having trouble getting running backs to the second level to actually gain these big yardage plays. But overall, Buccaneers, for the first 4 weeks of the NFL season, you're doing very well, and that is why you're at the top of the division. Next, we have Atlanta. So the Atlanta Falcons are 2 for 2 with one divisional win, and they're good, of course, is the first thing I'm going to expect is the running game. Of course, they have Tyler Algier, who is absolutely fantastic, who showed real hard running in his rookie season last year, and then they drafted Bijan Robinson, who is going to probably just absolutely terrify me for the coming years. Having those two backs on your running game makes you extremely volatile when it comes to having defenses try to guess when you're running and if you're going to be running from the into the inside or the outside, especially on formations where you have both of them on the field and the defense can have no idea which one you're going to. Because in around the same amount of carries that the Buccaneers have, they have 512 rushing yards, which is spread out quite nicely between Bijan and Tyler. So those two make the Falcons running game, and the Falcons running game is what makes that offense. Another good thing is just that you had a premium free agent signing in Jesse Bates. Signing Jesse Bates has been an absolute god tier move for you guys. He is a fantastic safety. 3 interceptions on the year already, a forced fumble, and just absolutely wrecking all across the field, getting tackles, both assisted and solo, being able to tackle very effectively in the open field. He is just an amazing safety valve, no pun intended, for his position, at that position, and is going to be just a complete pillar in that defense. Now we get into the bad. And the bad, I'm just going to highlight 2 players specifically. One is Desmond Ridder, and you might be thinking, Panthers place, it's not that big a deal. He's doing fine, and that's just it. He's game managing. He's not wowing you in any sort of way, and with how the offense of the Falcons is set up and the receivers that you have, you need a little bit more play to expect to win against some of these higher caliber defenses in the NFL, especially the ones the Falcons are going to have to go up against in their future coming games, because their schedule does get a little bit hard when it comes to the defenses that they're going to be performing against. I think Desmond Ridder has been a fine game manager, and it shows on the fact that he's not doing too terrible, but he's at the same TD to interception ratio, and he hasn't been doing too much yardage-wise. And the other bad I have is Kyle Pitts. I do not think Kyle Pitts is a bad player. I just think the way the Atlanta Falcons are using him is incredibly awful. Kyle Pitts showed that he could be an absolute stud at the tight end position, and they just seem to not be using him. He's barely getting any targets, barely getting any catches even from those targets, and barely any yards when he does get those catches. And from his rookie season to be utilized so poorly, you are just very soured at the fact that you're not seeing him on the field more, and you're wondering exactly why the system of the Atlanta Falcons aren't using one of their premium weapons. But overall, to have only, your biggest issues be just 2 players, you're not doing too bad, and it is a sheer, it is a clear reason why you are the second in the division. Don't worry, I'll learn to speak English halfway through. Next up, we have the New Orleans Saints, who are also 2 for 2 with 1 divisional win and 1 divisional loss, which is the reason why they are third and not, above the Falcons for any reason, even though they have the same record. And for the good on the New Orleans Saints, I want to say that you are seeing a lot of your young players really step up into premium roles on both offense and defense, which has to make you feel good, just because if you ever see that type of thing happen, you feel pretty safe in the way the franchise is moving forward, because you're seeing these guys that you wouldn't have expected to make all these contributions, making great contributions. And to give more specifics, just so I'm not talking on my ass, one of the players that you could think of on offense would be Rashid Shaheed, being in his having 2 years of experience, absolutely having a vital role on offense. And then another, 2-year experience guy in Alontae Taylor, being an absolute stud on the Saints defense, getting some sacks and getting a lot of tackles. And even though these guys aren't absolutely blowing up the stat sheet, the stats they are putting out are above average for guys of their experience level and guys who you would think are putting out those stats, which is why I would say that a good for the New Orleans Saints is that the fact that their young guys are stepping up in this way, especially with the injuries and suspensions of some of their actual top guys. And another good for the New Orleans Saints is their defense. Even though their defense is aging, they did add a few young pieces now to help with that and help average out the age on their defense. And they are still playing at a pretty high level. They're not giving up too many points, and the only issue seems to be their offense not being able to keep up, even if the defense does break a little bit. But other than that, their defense has been playing at a very high level, and you can't really complain too much about it. Both Pete Werner and Marcus May have been fantastic contributors on their defense, and I see that continuing moving forward. And now we get into the bad of New Orleans Saints, and the first thing I want to go is to their unstable QB room. And what I mean by that is that in their QB room, they have a Derek Carr who could be injured more than we're knowing at the moment, and we have a Jameis Winston who, without the proper time that he's gotten over this season, is prone to turnovers, so you have to be worried about that whenever he steps onto the field. And then you have Taysom Hill, who is labeled as a QB, but really should just be like a tight end running back hybrid, because currently he actually leads the team in rushing, and we'll get to that in a second. But we aren't really seeing much from the QB room of the New Orleans Saints to say why we should be really trusting them. I believe in Derek Carr to actually get stuff together, but that does come at the fact that he needs to be healthy to do that. And if they play him while he's still injured and looks so slovenly out there, I don't see that happening. And that does lead into my other bad take, well, the reason I think they are bad on this particular instance is their offense being so slow. Their offense doesn't really seem to be moving at the full speed that it used to in the past seasons. It feels a little bit more sluggish out there. It feels like the loss that they have on to some players being either suspended and newly coming back, or players being injured, is really hurting them when it comes to their offensive movement, because it just seems like they aren't able to keep up with some of the faster paced defenses in the NFL, because they themselves on offense are moving a little bit sluggishly. I think that showed full force on the Buccaneers game, where the Saints offense usually is able to do a little bit more, but the really fast moving Buccaneers defense was able to absolutely swallow the offense of the New Orleans Saints. But overall, you're still 2-2, so I can't say too much bad about you. And I had you pegged for winning the division, but now I'm not too sure, with especially seeing how good Baker is doing on the Buccaneers. But I still expect you to go pretty far, so good job, New Orleans. Yeah, so now I gotta talk about my team, because my team, the Carolina Panthers, sits at the bottom of the division at 0-4 with 2 divisional losses, and it did take me a while to actually think about good things to say about this team, especially with how frustrated I've been. But of course, the first thing that isn't obvious good is the defense and how good they are doing, even with so many injuries on this team being on the defensive side of the ball. Evero has been doing a absolutely fantastic job at making sure everyone on the defensive side of the ball, whether you be a backup or even a third string or a fourth string guy, you know what to do, you know your assignment, and you know how to execute. And this has been the, thing for a few seasons in Carolina, so there is no, it's not new ground to be seeing the defense being the only bright spot in Carolina. And another good is close to New Orleans is where we have a lot of our depth stepping up and playing well, like I just said about the defense, when they need to. So we also have instances like Chandler Zavala stepping up when Brady Christensen went down, and Calvin Throckmorton doing the same because Austin Corbet's still not here. So even though those two aren't doing the greatest, we could be in a lot worse position somehow when it comes to our offensive line if those two weren't playing at the level that they were. And we also have players like Sam Franklin Jr., who's usually just a special teams contributor, stepping up in a huge role in the safety position, especially during that, because he was playing in the Vikings game and even got that huge 99-yard pick 6 against Kirk Cousins on a route going to KJ Osborne. You're seeing a lot of the depth of the Carolina Panthers step up because the starters are either going down or not performing the way they should be. And then we get into the bad, and it took me a long time to choose what bad things I wanted to really cover and think that they were like the main thing, because I tried to do the main things that I've seen from each team, and I tried to keep it to 2 things, but I have 3 things on the bad list for the Carolina Panthers, and if you don't like that, fuck off, it's my channel, I'll do what I want. So the first bad thing is the front office and coaching, specifically the head coaching position, because our coordinators are doing absolutely wonderful. But the front office, being Scott Fitter, has been lying to the Panthers fan base, essentially saying we are just going to be able to drop in a QB and go. Obviously, that's not the case when you start 0-4. And the coaching, when it comes to Frank Reich, is that the team does not seem to be playing with any fire. The team does not seem to be motivated in any type of way to actually do anything. I mean, during the Vikings game, freaking Young got hit late on a incredibly easy to tell, like the play was dead and the player still and went and smacked him. And even the dude was expecting to get swarmed, but instead we just saw Bradley Bozeman and Chandler Zavala like daintily go over to pick up Bryce Young and kind of just do like this whole like, dude, what the fuck motion, instead of, showing some sort of fire for your starting quarterback. And I'm not saying get into a fight, but at least get into the dude's face, yell a little bit, tell him that he's not allowed to do that. But like, there's just no reason you should see that happen, and nothing. There's like no response from your team, and we've been having this issue for a while now. So that's not entirely on Frank Reich, but he has not made it better. And for the other bad thing, we have just the entirety of the offense. We have seen really nothing go well other than that Seattle game, and most of the things that went well in the Seattle game was just Adam Thielen deciding that he was just going to say, fuck it, we ball, and then a broken coverage, really long gain by DJ Chark. So it honestly, at that point, you can't really gain too much from that Seattle game, except for to know that Andy Dalton's a really good, dependable backup vet, and he still has a place in this league. Adam Thielen's really good. Chark can break coverage sometimes. In the other 3 games that we have played, the offense it's just done nothing. It's been absolutely stagnant. It's usually just halfback dive, screen, punted away. There has been no changes made in the past 4 weeks as well, so the offense has not seen any sort of noticeable improvement week to week. We've seen Bryce Young himself seem to improve in his decision making and stuff like that, but other than like actual offensive production, we've seen really nothing change for this offense, and it is a big reason why the Panthers are continuously not doing anything on offense and are leaving everything to the defense, who eventually breaks. And then, of course, I'm just going to say a quick thing, a third final thing, is just all the injuries that the Panthers have are not helping the fact that none of their starters are really playing to how well they should be. But mostly the injuries are on the defensive side of the ball, and because Evero is doing such a good job at making sure that depth knows what they're doing on the defense, it's not even a really big excuse, because of the fact that if the offense is the issue and the offense is still primarily healthy besides your offensive line, then why are you still performing like shit? So Panthers, you absolutely do deserve to be at the bottom of the division, being 0-4 with 2 division losses. So I can't say much more about you other than I am extremely disappointed. So now, just to recap, I'm going to lean a little bit this way because I have the most likely to win the division being the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, mostly just because of how nice we are seeing Baker Mayfield perform in the system that the Buccaneers have for him. So I think that is not too far-fetched to see that will continue going forward. Most likely to be last being the Carolina Panthers, being a 0-4 start with 2 division losses. It's going to be hard to come back to even get the 3rd place spot in the division. And without seeing any improvement coming to its offense and any sort of adjustments, I don't see them even in the position to do that anyway if they were to win a few games. My most impressive is, once again, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just because of how well they are able to implement a system around their QB and actually see him, succeed at the caliber he is succeeding at. So very impressive to them. And the biggest disappointment being the Carolina Panthers, once again, because of the fact that they are just really showing that they don't know how to run a football team. The front office is showing that they are failing their rookie quarterback, and it's making the NFL fan base absolutely just going bonkers, because you don't know if Bryce Young is good, if he's really going to fail, or if he, getting a bad shake. But the biggest disappointment by far, even after picking your quarterback number 1 overall, is the Carolina Panthers. My biggest question mark is the New Orleans Saints, mostly just because if you get your QB room solidified and Derek Carr is fully healthy, can you actually make a deeper run to actually try to claim the division title? I think you could, but with the loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers themselves, the best you can do now is split, and that could hurt you in the long run, especially if your slow offense is still going to be the issue against that fast defense, so you might actually lose to them twice, which may lead you to only getting a wild card spot being second in the division, but we'll see. That's why I have you as the biggest question mark. And lastly, I have what I just call the redheaded stepchild, because that is the Atlanta Falcons, because no one seems to really care about you guys at all, and I'm not trying to be mean when I say that. It's just that you're 2-2. You have Desmond Ridder as your quarterback. Your offense is extremely boring to watch unless Bijan Robinson is doing some crazy fuck shit breaking ankles. And your defense, while good, is just, a good defense. You have Jesse Bates doing really good, but he's more of like the silent killer. You don't really, notice that he's doing so well until you look at the stat sheet. So I'm going to be just saying that, like, you're kind of just there. You're not the best. You're not the team that could compete to topple the best. And you're not the worst, so you're just kind of there in the division at the moment, and that could change. But at the moment, you're just there. But that concludes the NFC South quarterly report. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.